What's up you guys, Hero276 here, and welcome to today's video and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be featuring an interesting team featuring ALOLAN Golem with rollout and double nuke moves. As you can see, we pick up a horrible lead up against G-FISK. We're going to save switch into Pelipper, and eventually my opponent makes a switch into Sableye. My opponent was a little bit late, meaning I'm going to be able to reach 2 weather balls before they can reach 1 foul play. I'm going to throw one of the weather balls just to bait. My opponent calls the bait, which is very nice, but as you can see, weather ball still does a ton of damage. I'm going to elect to let the foul play go through. It will not KO, but it gets us pretty low. I want to win switch advantage, so I'm going to throw a weather ball right here, and hopefully this takes out my opponent, and it does. They decide not to shield, and in the back is a Araquanid. I reach a last second weather ball, but this is going to be ALOLAN Golem's turn to shine. As you can see, ALOLAN Golem has double nuke moves, and both of them are dealing super effective damage. I'm going to come in, and right off the bat, we're generating energy very quickly. My opponent makes a nice play, throwing a rock slide onto ALOLAN Golem. I don't have to shield this since it won't do a ton of damage, but now, because I have switch, I can align my Swampert up against the G-FISK. I'm going for the first Hydro Cannon, and Hydro Cannon will get the first shield, and I'm just going to keep going for Hydro Cannon after Hydro Cannon. As you can see, G-FISK reaches a move, but I am going to shield it because I do not want to get hit with an Earthquake. Unfortunately, they just bait me with a rock slide. However, Swampert is at its second Hydro Cannon, and this should get my opponent's second shield. Now, I just need to get to one more Hydro Cannon, and that will be taking out the G-FISK, and at that point, all we have in the back is a Araquanid and a mid-health ALOLAN Golem with a ton of energy. So, Araquanid comes back in, and I really don't care about throwing a move here. Our win condition is ALOLAN Golem, not Swampert. Swampert goes down to a Bug Buzz, and ALOLAN Golem is one rollout away from reaching the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will be KOing the Araquanid. Boom! GG. Let's hop into game 2. Hopping into game number 2, and we got ourselves a lead up against AZUMARILL. This isn't too great. As you can see, AZUMARILL is dealing super effective with the quick moves, and although we're charging fast, we're not dealing a whole lot of damage in the process. AZUMARILL is going to get to a move here, but ALOLAN Golem is very classy, so I'm going to shield it, and it is the play rough. I have back-to-back wild charges now, so I'm going to go ahead and fire them off. Let's see that first one. Big damage there. I'm going to throw one more rollout before switching into Swampert, and Swampert will absorb some of the damage here. Swampert is also pretty classy, but a non-stab Ice Beam does basically no damage. I'm going to get in a very aggressive Mudshot down, and I leave with a ton of energy. An Ariados comes in, but it is not going to like the oppressive Hydro Cannon spam. First Hydro Cannon gets the shield, we have another one loaded, and we're just going to go straight for it. Hydro Cannon number 2, as you're going to see in a second, lands for some nice solid damage, and guess what? We have a third Hydro Cannon ready to go, and this will be getting my opponent's second shield, and my opponent for some reason cannot handle the smoke, and they're going to surrender. So that's a good game to my opponent, very well played. Let's hop into the next match. Hopping into game number 3, and we get ourselves a lead up against Blastoise. Water Gun does more damage, and Blastoise has a higher attack, so I'm going to switch into Pelipper, where the Water Guns are resisted. My opponent is staying in and throwing a move. I'm going to shield, and it is the Ice Beam, so it's a decent shield on my part. Now my opponent comes in with Machamp, and Machamp is by no means a Pelipper counter. First Weather Ball that we're going to go for gets the shield. We try to send the Hurricane, but this is just a cross chop. I can safely no-shield this, it won't KO, and we can full send the Hurricane. Hopefully this lands for big damage. Boom! Takes out Machamp right there, and in comes Blastoise again. Blastoise gets in a nice Water Gun farm down, and now we're going to bring in Swampert. Swampert doesn't have a particularly great matchup up against Blastoise, but it's better than having ALOLAN Golem in there, which would be taking super effective. We're going to body one Hydro Cannon, my opponent switches out, and it's a shiny Ariados. Except this time, we're going to full send an Earthquake. Earthquake lands, does huge damage, and now I'm going to farm down with ALOLAN Golem to start getting ahead on some energy. We're going to shield the move from Ariados. It's the lunge, and it's going to debuff our attack, but it doesn't matter much because Blastoise is in a range where one super effective Wild Charge will KO. We successfully reach the back-to-back Wild Charges, and I think my opponent just no-shields this, just kind of knows that it's good game. Very well played to my opponent. Let's hop into the next match. Hopping into game number 4, and we got ourselves a lead up against the Charmer. We don't really like Charmers very much on this team, so we're going to safe switch into Swampert, and we lure out a Lapras. This isn't too bad to lure out, because ALOLAN Golem does have a semi-decent matchup against Lapras. We land the Earthquake, which is nice, meaning we only have to go for Hydro Cannons. I think recognizing that I can potentially win switch or grab both shields, I am going to shield up the Swampert. I'm going to throw the Hydro Cannon on what should be a CMP tie. This should get the Lapras' shield, and it is a CMP tie. At this rate, I'm going to let the Surf go through. We actually survive on 1 HP, and Lapras gets in 1 Ice Shard. Recognizing this, I'm going to try to farm down with my rollout ALOLAN Golem, but unfortunately, we make no such progress. We do have to shield 1 Surf, and I think we should be able to farm down, but not before my opponent comes in with CLEFABLE. I have 2 Wild Charges ready to go. The first Wild Charge will land and do some big damage onto CLEFABLE. And now I'm going to come in with Pelipper and Wing Attack down. We successfully Wing Attack down the Charmer, and in the back is a Shadow Nidoqueen. You love to see it. Weather Ball is going to be doing some big damage here. Weather Ball almost takes out the Shadow Nidoqueen. We have a second Weather Ball ready to go. That is going to get the shield, and we're going to try to Wing Attack down, but unfortunately my opponent does decide to throw a Poison Fang. Luckily though, we have energy stored on our ALOLAN Golem. My opponent tries to sack swap in the Lapras, but we farm that down. We have a Stone Edge ready for the Nidoqueen, and Stone Edge will be more than enough to take out the Nidoqueen. So that's going to be a good game to my opponent, very well played. Let's hop into game number 5. Hopping into game number 5, and we got ourselves a lead up against Venusaur. This is by no means a good lead, as Swampert has an even worse matchup against Venusaur. However, the good thing about this matchup is that we're running double nukes, and I highly doubt that the Venusaur is expecting this neutral Stone Edge to land, and as you can see, it does massive damage onto the Venusaur. We are going to shield up the Frenzy Plant, and we're going to look to try and roll out down. However, my opponent swaps in an Empoleon, and although Waterfalls are doing super effective damage, Rollout is charging quick enough that we can fire off 1 Wild Charge, get a shield, and bail into Swampert. We can successfully body 1 Hydro Cannon without having to shield, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. The good thing about this matchup is that Swampert is able to outpace Empoleon to 2 Hydro Cannons before Empoleon can reach its second. As you can see, they threw 4 Waterfalls, the first Hydro Cannon lands, they are not at the back-to-back, and we reach our second Hydro Cannon. If my opponent lets us go through, which they do, we will win switch advantage. Now we can align our Pelipper to the Venusaur, and as you're going to see, my opponent surrenders. That's a good game to my opponent, very well played. Let's hop into the next match. Hopping into game number 6, and we have ourselves a lead up against Bastiodon. Bastiodon is by no means a good lead, considering it resists all of our moves except for Wild Charge. My opponent switches into Shadow Victreebel, but do they know about the Stone Edge? Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your headphones. Boom! Stone Edge one-shot Shadow Victreebel, and now my opponent is considering their life choices. Did I really want to run a Grass Hole themed team? Bastiodon comes back in, and we have Wild Charge to do some neutral damage. This will not do a lot of damage to Bastiodon, but any damage is good damage. And now that we have switch advantage, we can bring in Swampert, which is one of the hardest Bastiodon counters. We don't have to shield a thing. They go for the Flamethrower. That does basically no damage, and now we're just going to start to spam Hydro Cannons. Bastiodon is in a range where Hydro Cannon would threaten a KO, so I'm going to look to just go straight Hydro Cannon, and as you can see, it gets a shield. They have Shadow Torterra in the back, but we have Pelipper to respond. Pelipper is going to fire off a neutral Weather Ball, and this will be doing some nice damage to that Shadow Torterra. If they let it go through, which they do, we Wing Attack down, and for the second time in a row, my opponent surrenders. So that's a good game to my opponent, very well played. Let's hop into game number 7. Picking up an absolutely terrible lead into SCRAFTY in game number 7, so we're going to save switch in Swampert, and we lure out another Swampert. The mirror match isn't really that bad. I'm ahead on energy, and I can actually body 1 Hydro Cannon. I'm going to go for the back-to-back Hydro Cannons, hoping to get shields actually. I'm not really looking to do damage here. We get the first shield, which is nice, and now I'm going to full send the Earthquake. Earthquake will KO from this range if my opponent decides to let it go through, which they do, and we win switch advantage. The key thing to winning Switch with this matchup is that we're able to align Pelipper to the Scrafty, which definitely puts us in the driver's seat. At this point, I'm going to shield one Foul Play, as Foul Play would be doing a lot of damage to the very classy Pelipper. So, I'm going to go straight Weather Ball right here, hoping for my opponent's second shield, and we get the second shield. Wing attacks are really starting to get this Scrafty low, and Scrafty's had another move. I'm going to shield it, thinking it's the Foul Play, and it is the Foul Play, and I'm going to look to continue to wing attack down. My opponent catches a Weather Ball onto Registeel, and this is somewhat problematic. My true Registeel counter is dead, meaning I only have a Alolan Golem, and I have to hope that Wild Charge does enough damage to put Registeel at a low health. I'm going straight for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge actually does some very nice damage onto the Registeel, and the threat of another Wild Charge forces my opponent to throw a Focus Blast, which will take me out from this range. However, Pelipper can slightly overfarm now that the Registeel is dry on energy and go for Weather Ball. Weather Ball should be enough to take out Registeel from this range, and considering that the Scrafty is also energy dry, we're able to reach another Weather Ball in time to take out the Scrafty. So that's going to be a good game to my opponent, very well played. Let's hop into the next match. Hopping into the final match, and we got ourselves a lead up against ABOMASNOW. This is actually pretty decent, so my opponent is going to probably switch out. They swap in an Alolan Golem of their own, and we have one of the hardest responses to Alolan Golem in Swampert. Swampert resists all of Alolan Golem's moves, and not to mention is hitting for super effective all around. I'm just going to go straight Hydro Cannon, since Hydro Cannon will take out Alolan Golem from this range if they decide to let it go through, which they do, and they bring back an ABOMASNOW. The game lags for a little bit, and it's going to keep on lagging. Hopefully it's just mutual lag. It is mutual lag, and we're going to go for a Hydro Cannon. I'm hoping that my opponent thinks that I'm running Sludge Wave, and I get the shield, which is very nice. At this point, Swampert has done its job. I'm going to just let it go down, and I'm going to bring in a Alolan Golem. Alolan Golem charging very quickly. We reach the Stone Edge, but ABOMASNOW is going to throw their energy. I have 2 shields, so I might as well shield, and we shield up an Energy Ball, and in the back is a Jellicent. So Wild Charge here, going to be doing big damage onto Jellicent. Wild Charge gets the shield, second Wild Charge coming through on the Jellicent, and this is going to do big damage. Boom! Nearly one-shots the Jellicent. In comes Pelipper to catch what should be a Bubble Beam. And we're just going to wing attack on down the Jellicent. And finally, it's just that ABOMASNOW in the back, and all we have to do is reach one Hurricane. Given that my Alolan Golem is perfectly healthy in the back, I do not have to shield this move. But I'm still able to reach the Hurricane anyways, and this will one-shot the ABOMASNOW. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your headphones. Boom! One-shots the ABOMASNOW, and that's a good game. Now, you're probably wondering how good is Alolan Golem with Rollout. Now, while I definitely had some fun using it, Alolan Golem definitely had its problems. The biggest problem is lack of electric type damage, especially up against water type weaknesses that Alolan Golem faces. The AZUMARILL matchup was made worse by the absence of Volt Switch, and Rollout just doesn't have enough damage. However, one thing could definitely be said about its energy gain. As you can see, I was able to reach a Stone Edge in just 12 turns, which compared to high energy moves like SNARL and Bullet Seed, take 15 turns. So Rollout's amazing ability to charge energy very quickly allowed me to run double nukes. However, Alolan Golem just has a lot of weaknesses, and in general, doesn't really handle them very well. Even with the team that I had, which handled most of Alolan Golem's weaknesses, it was still pretty tough to run, and I ended up going about 8-7. Although Rollout wasn't necessarily bad, Volt Switch is just an all-around better move, sporting higher damage for just a little bit worse of energy gain, as well as the additional perk that it helps counter water types better. In short, Rollout is a situationally useful move for a situationally useful Pokemon. Hopefully, more Pokemon can learn this move in the future, so that way we can see it being used more. With that said, thank you so much for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.